Willan, and welcome to my CDI and the lovely food of France. Move the pointer to either the banner or the shield that interests you and press a button. I put in 2 recipes from each region for you to try. You'll find full instructions as well as pictures, and I've given many extra tips to help. Gâteau Breton. This is the most delicious butter cake. It's a cross between shortbread and a pound cake, and you'll see it all over Brittany. You can recognise it straight away because it's golden on top and it has a kind of lattice scratched with a fork. Now, very few ingredients for this gâteau, only 4 of them. No vanilla notice to flavour it. All the flavour comes from the butter. So we need egg yolks, flour, just regular all-purpose flour. I like to use unsalted butter because it has a better flavour on the whole than salted butter, and sugar. A fairly hot oven, not too hot, just a little bit hotter than for a pound cake. A rich mixture like this sticks easily, so be sure to line the bottom of the cake pan with a buttered paper and butter the paper as well. This is the French method of mixing pastry, in fact, though this is kind of half cake. You sift the flour onto the work surface and then sweep a well in the centre with your hand. You add all the remaining ingredients, butter, sugar and 5 of the egg yolks, keeping 1 of the yolks for the top. Then, with both your fingers and the heel of your hand, with a rocking motion, work the dough together. It'll get quite smooth and it'll be really quite sticky, as you can see. Drop the dough in the buttered pan and smooth it to an even layer. And with the remaining egg yolk, just take a little brush. If you like, add a tablespoon of water to the egg yolk and brush the top of the dough so that you get a nice golden glaze. And here's that fork that I was talking about. With the tines of the fork, you scratch a lattice design. As soon as it's brown, it'll take probably about 20 minutes, something like that. Lower the heat and then continue cooking until the gâteau is firm and it starts pulling away from the edges of the pan. Leave it in the pan to cool, because if you try to take it out when it's hot, it'll probably crumble. Then you usually cut it just like shortbread in wedges for serving, and it's one of those things that keeps wonderfully. A week, even 2 weeks in an airtight container. Solo cidre. It's really odd that cider isn't used more. It can easily take the place of white wine, and if you have a nice dry cider, it really isn't very fruity. Well worth trying. Sole fillets, you can use any kind of sole and even flounder. Butter for frying the chopped shallots. Dry hard cider. Now that's important. It should be alcoholic cider, not apple juice, and it should be nice and dry, not too sweet. Heavy cream or nice creme fraiche with that nutty flavour if you can find it. Arrowroot or cornstarch, that's mixed with a little bit of water, that's for thickening the sauce. Then lemon juice for flavour and some chopped parsley for a bit of colour. When you're folding the fillets, put them with the tail side upwards because that's much prettier. When you're cooking the fish, don't boil it. It should poach. That's to say the liquid should gently bubble in one corner. And be very careful not to overcook it. It should just flake easily, almost still have a transparent centre. Lift out the fillets with a slotted spoon, and you'll find that as they cool they produce quite a lot of liquid. So drain them on paper towels. Now, of course, all the flavours in that poaching liquid, and it's very important to concentrate it so you get a really good, well-flavoured sauce. Boil it right down. You only want really a third or half cup of liquid left. Now, I don't know if you prefer to arrange the fillets on one big serving dish or on individual plates, but either way, the dish should be hot. Put the fillet on it, spoon over a little bit of sauce, and then you sprinkle with some chopped parsley, and out it goes.
Normandy is an apple tree, loaded with fruit, in the shade of which a sleek cow lies peacefully chewing the cud. This is not a caricature. Looking today at the typical Norman countryman, well-fed and radiating an air of earthy stolidity, one might find it hard to see in him the descendant of the lean, land-hungry northern raiders who seized and settled this part of France 10 centuries ago. But there is no mystery at all about what first attracted the northerners to this fat and fertile country.
Normandy's secret is grass. and not so secret either, because the Normans love to boast of their grass. They say that a stick dropped on the ground at night will be buried in grass by the morning. No wonder their cows are so sleek. Normandy also has a long sea coast with large and busy ports at Cherbourg and Le Havre. Dieppe, as the nearest channel port to Paris, supplies the restaurants of the capital with an abundant variety of fish, including turbot, monkfish, flounder, and that aristocrat among fishes, the Dover sole.
The Normans love their food. They like it simple, they like it good, and they like plenty of it. And why not? They worked hard for that cream, that cheese, and that succulent hand-reared pork braised with apples and calvados. And if their reward should take the form of a 6-course Sunday lunch lasting 3 hours with special pauses for swigs of calvados to re-stimulate the appetite, it's richly deserved. Much of Normandy's vast milk production goes into her cheeses. Among the best known are Pont l'Evêque, a mild, creamy cheese recognizable by its square shape, and Livarot, a real fighting cheese, dark and pungent, not for the faint-hearted. Both these cheeses have a...
The writer and poet G.K. Chesterton said, "Poets have been mysteriously silent on the subject of cheese."
Roast duck with cherries. This recipe is designed for 4 people, so get a good plump duck. And of course the problem with duck is that it has a lot of fat under the skin. So you'll find that throughout the cooking we're trying to dissolve and get rid of that fat so that the skin will be nice and crisp. Now the duck for this dish is quite important. If you have one of the regular, rather fatty Long Island ducks, you need to be really sure when you're roasting it that you get rid of all the fat. If you can find one of the half-breeds, the moulards, that specialty markets are selling now, that's well worth looking for. Then a bit of butter, dark cherries. Now again, if you can get rather tart fresh cherries, that's just great. You can also get them in water in cans, but otherwise just ordinary dessert cherries will do fine. Red wine, any red wine really, something perhaps with a bit of fruit. Some red wine vinegar, that of course is going to give the sharpness to the dish. Chicken stock, make it at home if you can. Arrowroot or cornstarch dissolved this time in a little bit of red wine. That's for thickening the sauce. And there we go. Hot oven to brown the bird, but also to dissolve the fat. First of all, you put the trussing needle through the bird's legs, catching them well back. Then turn it over onto its breast. Then you take that top flap of skin and tuck in the parson's nose, or is it the Pope's nose, depends who you are, and catch the 2 wings and then tie the ends of string together so that you have a lovely neat duck. Now the big advantage of that is that not only is it going to look good when you serve it, but it's going to cook evenly. I've said we're trying to get rid of the fat, but all the same you need a little bit of butter just to start the browning so that you get a good colour on the bird. While the bird's cooking, you should turn it onto one leg, then onto another, and then finally onto its back. That way it cooks nice and evenly and gets a good brown. By now, the bird's been in half an hour and there should be a lot of fat in the bottom of the pan. I quite often prick the skin to get rid of any fat that's kind of trapped underneath it. Pour off that fat. We're going to lower the oven heat a bit and then add the trimmings from the bird so that they add flavour to the final gravy. Nearly there. Turn the bird and continue roasting until it's cooked. Now the way to tell if it's cooked is to lift the bird on a two-pronged fork and run the juices from inside. Those juices won't be cooked until all the meat of the bird is cooked. So if the juices are pink, the bird isn't done. And that's true for any poultry. Want the meat to be really soft and thoroughly cooked, you can continue cooking for a little bit longer. So while the duck has been doing its thing in the oven, we'll cook the cherries. They just simmer in the red wine. Cook them really quite a short time. 5 to 7 minutes might even be a bit long if the cherries are very ripe. Now the duck's cooked, we need to keep it warm. Put it on a platter, take out the strings, and if you cover it with foil, the aluminum will reflect the heat and keep the bird nice and warm. Now there's lots more fat, of course, accumulated in the pan, so we pour that off. Now to make the sauce, we add the red wine, which has that cherry juice in it, and the red wine vinegar to the pan and bring it to a boil. As with all sauces, we want a really concentrated sauce, so boil that liquid very thoroughly, and if there's any fat on the top, skim it off with a spoon. And strain the liquid into a small pan, and that gets rid of all the bits that are left in the gravy. And to thicken the gravy, again we have an arrowroot or cornstarch paste and whisk it into the boiling gravy, adding just enough to thicken the gravy so that it scarcely coats a spoon. I like gravy to be really quite thin. And of course the cherries will have cooled down, so add them back into the sauce, bring them just to a boil and taste the sauce for seasoning, and either spoon it around the duck or just a little bit of sauce around the duck and serve most of it separately.